U.S. President Donald Trump says Ukraine is ready for talks with Russia. In fact, Trump says he has received an important letter from President Zelensky saying that Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Listen in.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously,
Now, this comes as the Trump administration and Ukraine appeared to be close to signing the critical minerals deal that fell through after a disastrous Oval Office meeting on Friday. Zelensky, in fact, has earlier said that he wanted to make things right with U.S. President Donald Trump and work under his strong leadership to secure a lasting peace in Ukraine. Zelensky said he is ready to sign the deal, giving the U.S. access to his country's mineral wealth. He added that Ukraine sees the agreement on minerals as a step towards solid security guarantees. Zelensky said that he and his team stood ready to work under Donald Trump's strong leadership, achieve a peace that lasts. Zelensky said that last Friday's fiery meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump was regrettable and did not go the way it was supposed to. However, he stopped short of an apology. This comes after the U.S. announced it would pause military aid to Ukraine.
We can only regret what happened in the White House instead of our negotiations. But we need to find the strength to move on, to respect each other, as we always respect America, Europe, and all our partners, and to do everything together to bring peace closer. And I thank everyone who supports Ukraine in this.
Zelensky also outlined steps to a possible peace plan. He suggested that the first stages could be the release of prisoners and truce in the sky, including ban on missiles, long-range drones, bombs on energy and other civilian infrastructure, and truce in the sea immediately. He added that if Russia agreed to this, Ukraine would be willing to move very fast through all the next stages and to work with the U.S. to agree on a strong final deal. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron praised Zelensky's willingness to re-engage in dialogue with Donald Trump. And France also said a Russian fighter jet flew dangerously close to a French surveillance drone over the eastern Mediterranean, denouncing its quote-unquote aggressive behavior. And for more on all of this, with us on the broadcast this minute is Dr. Zachary Paikin from Geneva. He is the Deputy Director of the Better Order Project at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft in Washington, D.C. and a Senior Fellow at the Institute for Peace and Diplomacy. Thanks very much for being here with us. Let me begin by asking you for your reaction to what's playing out at this point. The immediate question that arises is, where do things go from here onwards?
It's a big question, obviously. I think that step number one is that the Trump administration will have to communicate perhaps even more clearly than it's done to date to the Europeans and to the Ukrainians what its key demands are and what its willingness, what the things are it's willing to offer in the context of any settlement talks. Right now, there still seems to be the impression in Europe that there's going to be some kind of U.S. backstop to European troops that would be placed on Ukrainian soil at the end of this war. And European troops, NATO troops, in effect, even though they're not necessarily covered by Article 5, Western troops on Ukrainian soil is something that Russia went to war precisely to prevent. And so that's likely to be a red line for Putin's Russia in the context of these settlement talks. So, I think in order to bring all the different interests and all the different parties to an agreement, it is incumbent upon the United States to set more realistic expectations, which they've begun to do, but which they should really hammer out a little bit more. Because at this point, the focus in Europe just still seems to be on trying to get the Americans on board for extending to Ukraine something diplomatically that they've been unable to achieve on the battlefield, in effect.
Right. Trump saying he received a letter from President Zelensky. At the same time, what do you make of what and where Ukraine stands at this point as far as how things have transpired post that clash in the Oval Office?
Well, President Zelensky was right not to apologize. He is the leader of a sovereign state, and it would be unbecoming of the dignity of a sovereign state to offer a public apology. But nonetheless, he was right to express regret over what happened and to signal to the Americans that he is prepared to act quickly. In particular, signaling his openness to engaging in an immediate partial ceasefire should the Russians reciprocate. So that's a positive signal on his part. He'll have to continue, moving in that direction, given that the United States has begun to exercise leverage over the Ukrainians by limiting, at least to some degree, military assistance to Ukraine on a temporary basis. So the Ukrainians are going to be able to stay in this fight for several more months. But beyond that, some of the capabilities that might, dry up are things that Ukraine really does need beyond that to be able to stay in this fight. We're talking here about missile defense, longer range missiles, intelligence sharing, which so far, as far as I'm aware, is still on the table, but nonetheless has been absolutely essential for Ukraine to be able to inflict damage upon Russian forces. So, the United States has signaled that it really wants a quick resolution to this conflict, and it has begun to exercise leverage to that effect. And so, Ukraine will have to react to that. The Russians, by the way, will also need to understand, and the Americans will need to communicate to the Russians that they should understand that this is a temporary cessation of military aid to Ukraine for the exercise of leverage to push for peace, and that they shouldn't take advantage of this in order to press their advantage too significantly on the battlefield, because that would also make a negotiated settlement unfeasible. And the Russians need to understand that the best way for them to accomplish some of their more reasonable political aims is at the negotiating table rather than on the battlefield as well.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.